Do you sometimes feel as if you're taking one step forward but two steps backwards in relation to your health? What if I told you that you're unknowingly making your health fragile? In today's video, we're going to talk about 3 hidden health traps that are potentially making your health fragile. Now, I know you must be thinking, fragile, does she mean breakable? Well, to an extent, yes. Now, this concept of fragile versus anti-fragile is something that I'm exploring in a book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. It's called Anti-Fragile. And in that book, he explores in great detail the 3 possible consequences or outcomes that happen in response to exposure to a stressful event. Now, he talks about it in relation to all aspects of life and I guess existence, but in today's video, I'm going to talk more about how this relates to health, and I'm going to talk about the fragile part, and in a future video, I'm going to talk about anti-fragile. Now, let's define anti-fragile versus fragile. So in the book, he talks about the 3 things that can happen in relation to a stressful event. The first thing is that after stress, you're exposed to stress, and you fall apart, right? You are worse off than before you were exposed to the stress of that. Second thing that can happen is nothing. You more or less come back the same. And then the third thing that happens is that you don't just come back the same, but you come back better off after you're exposed to the stressful event, right? So in today's video, we're going to talk about 3 things health related that cause you to be worse off after you're exposed to them than before you were exposed to them. The first 2 things are medications, and the third one is not medication, but health related. Okay, so the first of the 3 things that are first of the 3 traps that make you fragile: antibiotics. Antibiotics are some of the most abused medications ever, okay? Because anytime many people get some hint of an infection, they assume it's a bacterial infection, but antibiotics, they only kill bacteria, but many infections are non-bacterial, viral infections and so on, right? So taking an antibiotic for a non-bacterial infection puts you at risk for serious complications. One is resistance. So when you take antibiotics, the germs in your body, whether or not it's a germ that's causing an active infection, but germs in your body learn smart ways to hide from the antibiotic so that the antibiotic does not kill them, okay? And as Nassim Taleb puts it brilliantly, he says that antibiotics transfer anti-fragility, so robustness, I suppose, but he doesn't like that word, from us as individuals to the bacteria. So whereas the bacteria are kind of weak, exposing them to antibiotics make them stronger, and exposing us to antibiotics make us weaker, okay? And so in having resistant bacteria, it means that the antibiotics don't work, and you need stronger and stronger antibiotics to kill the same bacteria, which of course put you at risk for more problems, and also from infections from the same bacteria that are no longer susceptible to the antibiotics that you're taking, right? The second problem, or the second way antibiotics make you fragile or worse off, is that they deplete your good bacteria. So yes, they might kill the bad bacteria, but they deplete your good bacteria, and at the end of the day, after completing the course of antibiotics, your good bacteria concentration is so low that any bad bacteria you have can overgrow. In addition to bad bacteria, then yeast or fungi that might be in your system, those also overgrow as well, because the balance is off, there's less competition for the food, and so these things that don't work for the antibiotic, don't get killed by antibiotics, overgrow, and then can cause problems in the future, other infections, new infections in the future, okay? And then the third way antibiotics make you fragile or worse off is that you can have toxicity, real toxicity from antibiotics, right? They have potential serious side effects, sometimes deadly. Some include weakening your bone marrow so that you have dangerously low levels of blood cells, including white blood cells, and then can't fight infection. Or you might even have kidney failure from having a bad allergic reaction that irritates the kidneys, and so people end up on dialysis because of an antibiotic toxicity, right? So antibiotics are the first of the 3 hidden health traps that make you fragile. Second, steroids. Now, steroids are another abused class of medicines. When I first came to Mississippi, I was quite shocked at how easily people were willing to take steroids for the crud, so viral respiratory infections or any little inflammatory problem. Go and get a steroid shot, go and get a steroid dose pack, okay? But steroids have grave complications that can leave you worse off. One of them is high blood pressure. Now, an example to show you about this issue with high blood pressure. This another writer, Robert Greene, he wrote those laws books, Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature, and so on, great books. But he talked about how in an interview once that I heard, he spoke about how he got a stroke. A few years ago, he got a bad stroke that left him paralyzed on one side of his body. And essentially, he was promoting one of his books at the time, a new book, and he traveled from California to New York to do this promotion, but he forgot his blood pressure medication. And so he wasn't taking his medicine, but anyway, he was an avid runner, went to Central Park to have a jog, and unfortunately got stung on his neck by a bee. Gave him a bad, swelling allergic reaction. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor gave him a steroid shot for this allergic reaction, right? And then because of the steroid shot, his pressure went higher because steroids can increase your blood pressure. But at the same time, he forgot his blood pressure medication. So a double whammy. Pressure was high, stressed out from the book promotion, forgot his blood pressure pills, and got a steroid. So because of that triple threat, he ended up with a stroke, unfortunately, left him paralyzed on one side of the body. And he, talked in the interview about how he was so sorry that he got that steroid shot and, was remorseful for thinking that maybe he didn't need it, right? But it happened. But that is what happens with steroids. Had somebody once a patient who took steroids because of a carpal tunnel, an inflammatory problem, got steroids while she was pregnant, and unfortunately her pressure went sky high, got a condition called preeclampsia, and had to have an early cesarean section of the baby when she was basically less than 30 weeks pregnant. And unfortunately, after that cesarean section, baby survived, of course, was in neonatal intensive care unit, but then she got multiple other complications after that early cesarean section. And it all started by taking steroids. So high blood pressure, a potential grave complication of taking steroids. Another problem with steroids is that they increase your blood sugar as well. So everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people know that steroids can increase the blood sugar. And when you have an increase in your blood sugar, of course, that puts you at risk for infections. And for people who are diabetic, it makes the diabetes worse, and they could potentially have like a diabetic coma, be triggered because of taking a short course of steroids. Or for people who take steroids for a long term, they didn't have diabetes, but it can end up with steroid-induced diabetes, right? So taking steroids can leave you worse off than before you took the steroids. And then the third problem with steroids is that they weaken your immune system, right? So in the beginning, you might be more prone, if after a short course, more prone to some bacterial infections. But again, the longer you take steroids, the more at risk you are for more serious infections, like serious fungal infections, tuberculosis-like infections, and other unusual infections just because of how steroids weaken your immune system, right? Now, the third way, right, that you might be getting fragile from exposure to healthcare is, believe it or not, having health insurance. So you might think this is so weird. How is health insurance is a good thing? How is that going to leave me worse off than before I had health insurance? Now, think about health insurance, and I'm learning more and more about this now, but the thing about health insurance is that essentially having health insurance means that you're going to pay more for healthcare, and that's just a fact. The cash price is always much less than the insurance price. Why is that? I don't know. Marketing, business, who knows? But the cash price is usually 40% or lower than the official insurance price. So having health insurance puts you in debt compared to not having health insurance, because as much as you have insurance to cover it, your co-pays end up being more, and like I said, you pay more than if it was the cash price, okay? Second problem with health insurance is that tragically, having health insurance means that many people have unnecessary procedures, because once you have insurance, and in general, the system thinks, oh, this is somebody who can pay, so we can do this, that, and the other, because we don't have to worry, they're not paying for it, maybe not directly, right? So we can do all these procedures. And so many examples I've come across. I remember this man, he had insurance, and so he went for a back problem, and they did an MRI of his whole spine and found a problem with his neck, but he went for his lower back. They tackled the neck problem, did insurance and that, even though it wasn't bothering him, but they're like, oh, we found this, let's operate on it, right? And left the lower back problem, which was the original complaint. Later on went and did surgery to fix the lower back problem, but then this poor man went on to get tons of complications, weaknesses in his right arm, which he did not have before the surgery. So he had so many problems just because he had insurance, and so he was covered for all the procedures just because of that, right? Then another patient I remember long ago, and this was so fascinating to me, he had a problem where he was having leakage of bowel contents through the belly, the abdominal wall, right? We call it a fistula. His was very big. Usually they treat those by restricting food and giving people nutrition through the vein. He didn't have insurance, so he could not get this nutrition through the vein. And so he had to eat. Ordinarily they say you can't eat because the food is going to come out, blah, blah, right? This man's wife nursed him and he was eating good food, good meat, and real food. And I was so shocked that less than a year later, several months later, this man's fistula was fully healed. It healed faster than anybody who I've ever seen that had nutrition in the vein. And this happened in a man who didn't have insurance. And so he had to go the regular, normal route where basically he let his body heal on its own. His wife nursed him with good food, etc. Right? So this man was better off because he didn't have insurance, and then some people are worse off because they do have insurance, right? And then the third problem with health insurance is that unfortunately your care can be denied, right, by the company tragically, or delayed because they take so long to approve your care. So your health can be worse off because you're waiting and waiting and waiting for the insurance company to dictate whether or not you can have it and how much you can have, etc., etc., right? So health insurance, believe it or not, is one of those things health related that leave you fragile, potentially leave you worse off than if you did not have health insurance. And me personally, I am learning more and more now that, hey, there are ways to opt out of insurance. There are these health sharing plans, right? And there's several health sharing plans actually out there where everybody puts into a pool, and then if you get sick, pay your bills from the pool, but not before negotiating the cash price and negotiating a good price. And so I personally actually opted into that this year and got rid of the exorbitantly expensive insurance that we were paying for my family of only 3, right? So these are 3 things, right, that potentially make you worse off, right? So you're worse off after being exposed to these compared to before you were exposed to these, right? At the end of the day, less is more. The less we take, the less intervention, the better it is for us. And again, at the end of the day as well, you will realize that your health is your responsibility. We were made to be healthy, right? Being healthy is the default. Our body was designed to be able to fix itself, regenerate, repair, and come back better. Now, in a future video, I'm going to talk about certain things you can do, several things you can do to make yourself stronger, right? If something happens, we will all get sick from time to time, but you want to be able to bounce back from that sickness and bounce back better. And in a future video, I'm going to talk about how you bounce back better after being exposed to a stressful event, how to make yourself anti-fragile. So stay tuned to that. And if you found this video helpful, definitely share it with somebody who you think will benefit from it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.